tell patients. The reality is that our treatments are dictated by the wants, the needs, the desires of the modern patient. The modern patient demands procedures that are fast and comfortable. The modern patient demands procedures that are affordable, but you'll also notice through social media that the modern patient has a very short attention span. And so they want variety with their procedures. They want something that inspires them, something that excites them. We can do all of this with Dermapen 4 and with Dermapen World protocols. The versatility that we see is that we deliver suitability for all ethnicities and for all skin colors and types. This delivers a universal standard that enables a predictable, a precise, but a reliable treatment outcome for everyone coming into the clinic. From a microneedling perspective, some 20 years ago when I used to talk about this topic, I would spend the first 2 hours trying to convince practitioners why you want to stab a patient in the face with needles. Now, some 20 years later, it's a case of getting practitioners to understand that deeper and more aggressive does not equal a better result. For simplicity for your patients, I want you to think back to childhood and you were riding your bike as fast as you could go, and then you fell off. You grazed your knee. On goes the sticking plaster. Some 3 to 4 days later, on the area which was traumatized, you then remove that sticking plaster. And the first things that children notice is that it's cleaner, it's whiter, it's softer, it's smoother, it's better texture, it's better tone. So we understand that if human skin undergoes this process of microtrauma, then it has the capability to reset, to regenerate, to rejuvenate, and to repair itself to an even better condition than what it was before. This is the philosophy of your Dermapen World procedures. To deliver a regenerative procedure that promotes the autologous regenerative process to improve skin quality, skin health, skin integrity, and skin functionality. Why this is important for me? Because there are a lot of options that we see in our market for treatments that patients can undergo. When I look at the botulinum toxin, when I look at the filler market, I want you to consider the role of these procedures, but also the placement of these procedures within the skin. I've been moving my hand for a very long period of time. If I stop moving my hand, you can see mimic lines. Now, if I put in 40, 80 units of botulinum toxin into my hand, it's going to prevent muscular contraction. But with this, despite the fact that my hand can no longer move, if you look at it, there's still evidence and signs of mimic lines. Likewise, you can put as much filler as you wish into the skin, but if you have an imbalanced skin tone, if there's signs of hypopigmentation, if you have an irregular texture, none of this is going to correct this. So the entire concept of regenerative medicine, the success of your Dermapen 4 procedures is that we now promote a cascade to enhance the repair, to enhance the regeneration, the quality, the integrity, and the functionality of the skin. By comparison to more superficial procedures, the popularity of microdermabrasion, the popularity of chemical peels, we're working above and beyond stratum corneum. We're working above and beyond stratum granulosum. We're physically working within the skin to activate this healing process. And this now allows, particularly with pinpoint procedural versatility, with Dermapen 4, to work from 0.2 of a millimeter up to 3 millimeters within the skin to now allow a safe and predictable outcome that is non-thermolytic, that is non-ablative, and enables a fractional rejuvenation. So your standard patient just experiences some 24 to 48 hours of a mild to moderate sunburn in both appearance and sensation. You should never see bruising, you should never see grazing, there should never be track marks, and there should never be any flaking of the skin. So we now have a complete solution and answer for the wants, needs, demands of the modern patient for a procedure that is fast. You can treat a full face in as little as 4 minutes. For a procedure that is affordable. For a procedure that allows you multiple combination therapies to keep both the practitioner and the patient inspired, but a procedure that is evidence-based and absolutely delivers versatility above and beyond just treatment of post-acne scars. On this note, I really want to put the focus on the versatility of more superficial dermapen procedures to open up opportunities for treatment of hyperpigmentation, for treatment of acne, for treatment of milia, anywhere on face, scalp, and body. So we now refresh our opinions and refresh our views on microneedling that more aggressive and more blood does not equal a better treatment. And this is the success from the inventors of automated microneedling of Dermapen World's Dermapen 4. Since our launch in 2018, the Dermapen 4 still remains the world's #1 automated microneedling device for the medical market globally. My last count on Wikipedia, where I explored every country in the world, showed presence in around about some 83 plus countries. The innovations of your Dermapen 4 still deliver the world's first and only fully digitalized automated microneedling device, the only technology with Bluetooth capability to sync and to download firmware updates, and the versatility of the fastest motor on the market at top speed of 120 revolutions per second to now deliver an unparalleled 1,920 puncture channels per second. With versatility to move from 0.2 to up to 3 millimeters, we now deliver an intense array of new innovations, new indications, and new treatment programs. Still, there are 3 big questions that always remain in our microneedling market internationally. The first question is, which indications can you treat? We've known since the mid-1990s the success for collagen induction therapy. That means scar revision, wrinkle reduction, but also stretch marks. We need to develop above and beyond this to see the versatility with our Dermapen as the premier device for treatment of hyperpigmentation, for versatility with acne, for innovation for rosacea, and as part of combination therapies for further arrays of skin indications. The second big question that I frequently get, and this is one of the biggest challenges for microneedling, is understanding that depth is not about mathematics and arithmetic. Too often, so many practitioners are so focused on which depth, which depth, which depth. What you can achieve with 1.5 millimeters on one patient may not achieve the same effect on another patient. We also understand that skin density changes from region to region to region, but also patient influences such as diet, patient influences such as medication will also affect the outcomes of your procedure. And the third big question that I want to handle is how frequently you should be performing your procedures. The answers to these questions really don't lie in a training manual. The answers to these questions aren't going to lie in some 200-page clinical. They want to make it really simple. Everything you need to know about your Dermapen 4 procedures for absolute pinpoint precision for every patient, every time, the skin's going to tell you. So to handle the first aspect of this, there's absolutely no surprises here. But what I wanted to do was to map up a basic skin 101 so that you can understand the value of a visual endpoint by comparison to what practitioners are used to, which is a mathematical endpoint with this. So absolutely no surprises here that there are 3 layers of skin. So we're not getting into the technical parts yet. We have epidermis up the top. This is my interpretation of the epidermal junction. I failed art class and my drawings are not to scale. We then have the dermis, and then down the bottom, we have the hypodermis. With traditional microneedling, we were always taught to go deep for every patient, every single time. But the reality is that you're going to create a very different response of direct cell stimulation by comparison to indirect cell stimulation, whether your needles are in the epidermis, whether they're in the dermis, or whether they're in hypodermis. But the story gets more complex because you've got to take into account and consider that there are sublayers. No surprises here. No sublayers in the hypodermis. Papillary and then reticular, so 2 sublayers for the dermis, and then we have 5 sublayers for the epidermis. Basal, spinosum, granulosum, the sedum which we find on palms and soles, and then corneum up the top. So our process gets more complex of not just understanding that there's a difference of cascades in biological response from layer to layer to layer, but you also are going to activate different cells, different cascades, different combinations from sublayer to sublayer. So with this process, the first challenge I want to update is that all patients must undergo as deep as possible and as bleeding as possible. In fact, in 2006, one of the pioneers of microneedling, which is Capetonian-based plastic surgeon, Fernandez, is behind the original microneedling roller. In 2006, with his German counterpart, Matthias Aust, what they discovered and concluded is you can achieve the same level of collagen activation, collagen synthesis, collagen regeneration, and collagen stimulation from 3 millimeters of depth as what you can with just 1 millimeter of depth. So we understand that going deep and going more aggressive is not advantageous. Going deep increases your downtime, going deeper increases your patient discomfort, and then reduces the chance of your patient coming back for that procedure. At this same time in 2006, Greco from Sarasota in the USA concluded that the formation of collagen doesn't occur from the bottom up. The formation of the collagen which we activate occurs from around about 0.6 to 0.7 of a millimeter in the skin and then starts its placement downwards. So we understand that again, going deeper, just because your device can perform at 3 millimeters does not mean every patient is going to be 3 millimeters. How I want to tie this in for simplicity. Let's talk about major cell groups. The hypodermis, the most common cell that we have here is an adipocyte or a fat cell. The adipocyte in this case accounts for around about some 87% of cell composition in the hypodermis. This is great for subcutaneous injections for filling, but for skin rejuvenation and regeneration, fat cells don't produce collagen. Fat cells aren't producing glycosaminoglycans, hyaluronic acid. Fat cells are not producing elastin, and fat cells are not producing glycoproteins. What gives you this process is a fibroblast. So if you have 87% potential of adipocytes in the hypodermis, then the opportunity of your fibroblast is not going to be very significant. So the reality is that your fibroblast, which produces the collagen, only has some 5 to 7% potential down here in the hypodermis. So if you want true collagen induction therapy, this is not your target area, but neither is the epidermis, because there's no fibroblast there. So too common we see in the market this misunderstanding with microneedling that there are such things as a baby Dermapen treatment, where all you need to do is work at 0.2 millimeters all over a patient's face, and you're magically going to be producing collagen. No. It's about direct cell stimulation. So let's move on up to the dermis itself. The most dominant cell is the fibroblast. And in this case, it's responsible for the production of collagen, elastin, GAG production or hyaluronic acid, and glycoproteins. The fibroblast in this placement here accounts for a healthy patient at around about 85% cell composition. So we understand that the advantage is, particularly for your collagen induction therapy procedures, this includes anti-aging, so writing production, for scar revision, and then also for striae, we understand that the source of your stimulation and your regenerative process is actually through this area here, not here, not here. When we also look at the value within the dermis is the second most dominant cell, and this is the macrophage. With the macrophage, its process is to activate our wound healing response. It accounts for around about 10% of cell composition here. The macrophage, I want you to imagine, is a lot like Pac-Man or a lot like a very, very hungry animal. It digests, it processes. There's a very big difference, however, between a proactive macrophage versus an inactive macrophage. Just because you have access to a regenerative procedure doesn't mean that the patient's skin is going to react. I take into consideration for any regenerative process, from Dermapen to PRP to autologous stem cells or fat grafting for the patient, this is a machine. And if you don't put the right fuel into the machine, you can't expect the right response from that machine. Just a couple of areas of consideration before I continue on with this MAP process here. We understand that if you send a signal for the skin to produce collagen, that signal is not necessarily taken up and the fibroblast doesn't necessarily start pumping out collagen. With this, we understand that the signaling requires a chemical cascade, but its potential is determined by the patient's age. For example, in order to produce collagen from the fibroblast, we have a recipe of vitamin C, systemic, but we also see evidence even through topical application of vitamin C plus a fibroblast equals a collagen potential. As the most abundant protein found in the human body, there's 27 known forms of collagen, and 7 of these are going to be associated with the skin. However, from the age of 20 onwards, we see collagen depletion at a rate of around about 1.7% a year from the age of 20 onwards. So I want to show here that with this natural phenomenon, an older patient is always going to require more procedures than a younger patient. But what I also want to show is that we can manipulate and influence production through diet and through management systemically of how the patient's lifestyle and how that can influence our result. From this process here, you can make collagen, but there's 27 forms, so you've got to determine what type of collagen you're going to make, but you want good value and good quality collagen. The collagen that we find in the extracellular matrix needs to be tightly bound in order to promote density, volume, lifting, firming, and toning. The example I think of this are patients when I see in consultation who wish to undergo a breast augmentation procedure. They think in their mind that if they move from an A cup to a double D cup, that they're going to sit here. Gravity doesn't work that way. So the more volume you create with no structure, they're going to sit here. So with this process, the quality and the type of the collagen, but how tightly bound that is, influences the success of your regenerative procedure. So we understand that the bundles of protein fibers need to look a little bit like this triple helix here. As such, I want you to imagine a boat that is moored at Dubai Wharf. With this at the marina, if the rope is tightly bound and strong, you have durability and tensile strength. So if there's a storm, if the water gets choppy and wavy, then the rope is able to hold that boat into position. This is not dissimilar to the extracellular matrix. However, if the rope is weak, as soon as you place pressure, then the rope is going to snap, or the rope is going to unravel. The difference between this and this is iron. So whilst